The beauty of your website depends on the kind of colors you use. So first of all, I'm going to start off by creating my project folder.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you.
First off, there are predefined color names you can just call, like we know red, yellow, green, blue, and all those stuff. And then secondly, you can use an RGB value, a hex value, an HSL value, an RGBA value, or an HSLA value. So there are a lot of these things seem to be complex, but then it's very easy to go about it. Let's break it down. So first off, I'm going to start by creating a simple div element. I'm going to name it div. So I'm going to use a div element to demonstrate how you can use the different ways of calling or utilizing colors. So right here in my style.css, the first thing I'm going to do is to type in an asterisk. I open my brackets, then I'm going to type box sizing equals to border box. Okay, so with this we're done. Let's call our div elements. So let me see what I use, the name I use. Okay, so I use div parent. Let me just copy this right here and then paste it here. So now we have called our div element, and then we can style it up. So I'm going to set the height. Let me give it a height of 500 pixels and a width of 500 pixels. Okay, to set the color, we can actually change the background color. You see, it's not visible over here because we have not yet set the color, so it's automatically transparent. Yeah, it's transparent because it doesn't have a color. So if I change the background color over here, I can make it aqua, and then we see it has updated here in our browser. So this is the first way to call colors. You can actually call colors or use colors by referring to their predefined name. So when I type red, it changes to red. When I type blue, it actually changes to blue. When I type orange, it changes to orange. This is one way of using colors, or it's one way of utilizing colors. So this is basically how you are going to change every background. If you want to change a background of anything in your website or web page, this is actually how to do it. You just type the background color, then you just write the color you want, just like they just need simple syntax. Background color is to, and then you write your color: orange, red. You can even use compound colors like maybe Dodger blue. It's also a color. You can use light red, light green. It's also a color. All these colors have been predefined in CSS. Yeah. So what if you have text and you want to change the color of a text? You see, if I type in something over here, you see the background color property we set doesn't affect the text. Yeah. So what we do now is we set the color. When we type in color, just color, it actually changes only the color of the text we have in our development. So when I set the color of this text to, let's say, yellow, the color of our text actually changes to yellow, and then the background remains light green. Yeah. So you can just play around with these things and then you get comfortable with it. You see, it just updates. One cool thing you would like to also do is to turn on autosave. You turn on autosave. That means you don't have to be clicking Ctrl S every time you type something. It just automatically updates in your browser. Yeah. So let's move on with our colors. This div element we've created over here, it has a light green background color, right? But then what if we want to change the color of the border around it? We automatically, it has this border, but the color of the border is actually transparent, so we can't see it. So if we want to change the color of the border, we actually, it's very simple. We just type border. The next thing you do is to set the size of the border. So I'll use 1 pixel solid blue. You see, now we have our border and then the color has changed. One thing to note here is bringing the solid. If you type only the size of the border without bringing the solid, it actually doesn't work. The border doesn't actually work. It will go away. Yeah, so it will go away. So one thing you would like to frequently check is to bring this solid. 5 pixels solid blue, 5 pixels, 1 pixel solid yellow, anything you want. Yeah, so let me bring this back and then let's continue. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the color values of CSS elements. So I made mention that there are different ways to use colors. There are different ways to call colors, and then one is by using the predefined color names, which is red, yellow, green, blue, and etc. But then there's another way of using colors. That's by typing in the RGB value. Okay, so what is the RGB value? The RGB value, it stands for red, green, and blue. When we want to use the actual color values, we type red, right? And then when we want to use the RGB value, that means we first of all have to type in RGB. We open a bracket and then we type in the values. You see, it has three colors, right? Red, green, and blue. So we have to set specific values for each and every color. So if I want red, I would have to set the red to its highest, which is 255. Set the green to its lowest, and then the blue also to its lowest. Then I have my red color over here. If I want it to be blue, I just set the blue to its highest, which is 255, and then the rest, green, and then the rest are all 0. Yeah, so you can play with these values and then you can get your the color values you actually want. Another way to also utilize colors is by typing in the hex value, the hexadecimal value. So instead of typing the RGB value, I can type in something like hash FF. Yes, so this is basically white. So this first two belongs to red, and then these two belongs to green, and then the last two belongs to blue. Yeah. So when I type in FF, it means it's basically white. That's how you type white. Yeah, that's what you get for white. When I want red, that means I'm going to set all the other parts to 0. So 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Sorry. Yes, and then we have red, because now we have set the red to its maximum, which is FF. We've set the green to 0, which is these two zeros, and then we've set the blue to also we've also set the blue to 0. Yeah. When you want let's say, you can actually try playing around with these things. Let's say hash F1. Yes, I just typed in random values, but it's produced a color. So that's apparently how hex values work. Yeah. And then there's one more thing you have to know. So with using colors, sometimes you would like to set the opacity. So Visual Studio Code actually makes it very easy. You can just come over here and then adjust the opacity of the color you would like to set. Yeah. So when I select red, it has this color picker that lets you adjust all those things. I'm able to adjust the opacity over here. Yeah. And it's very simple. Unlike other IDs, text editors, Visual Studio Code makes it very simple. So when I type in a simple RGB value, maybe 22222, yeah, I can come over here and then just adjust the opacity. So we've seen that as I adjusted the opacity, Visual Studio Code automatically created this new comma and then added this weird numbers. Okay, so these weird numbers actually are nothing new. It's just the value for the opacity. So when we want to type in without this portion, if we want to add our opacity on our own, we can just bring a comma and then type in the value we want. You see, so maybe 0.7. So the higher the opacity ranges from 1 downwards. So the lower the value, the more opacity you get. It becomes more transparent. Yeah. So that's basically it for colors. All the other things are actually based on personal preference. But then I prefer to use I usually use RGBA values and then the hex values. Sometimes occasionally I also use the predefined color names. Rarely use HSL and then the HSLA values. So you can play around with this thing and then get choose what you're actually comfortable with. So thanks for staying tuned and then please make sure to subscribe.
That I would pray for you, I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too.